Welcome back, animal fans. This is another episode of the Animal Pakcast, a special edition this time. Joining me as a special co-host is animal athlete Rob Hall, the Savage.
What up?
And we have as a guest the boss, Dan Green. What's up, Dan?
What's up?
Thanks for coming on. So we put out a post asking fans for questions. We got an awesome response. We got hammered with a ton of questions. So I don't want to waste any of your time, so we're just going to dive right into it here. First question. This guy asked, Dan, if you're working up to a top set of deadlifts, how do you structure your warm-ups?
Yeah, it's a great question. But I would say when I train for like a meet, I have phases in my training. And so in the early phases, I'm trying to really accumulate volume. So a lot of times when I'm doing a top set of something, if it's a top set of reps, I do a lot of reps on each of the warm-up sets. So it's not quite like a pyramid. It's just kind of like straight sets of like, let's say 5. And I'll do the same thing on like squats or front squats or something or bench. But then when I get closer to a meet, or I'm in more of like a peaking phase, then I tend to do it more of like a kind of a reverse pyramid warm-up. So that would be like, 1 plate for 8, 2 plates for 6, 3 plates for 3, 4 plates for 1 or 2, 5 plates for 1. And then just singles until I do my top set. And then whatever number reps that is, I'll just go for the reps at that point. So that's kind of like a true warm-up at the beginning, like actually warming the body up. And then just really low reps to kind of handle the weight. Just kind of get the joints and the spine to like, be ready for the big one.
Yeah.
But it's not like I'm trying to build up volume. I'm trying to do, I'm trying not to do a lot of volume so I'm fresh for the main set. I'll put in work after the main set, but the warm up is like, more focused on just getting the body warm. And then the motion should be more dialed the further I am into the training. So the singles and doubles, like that's usually what it is at that point.
Okay, cool.
Do you feel like whenever, like you're in a meet prep here, like you need to change your top set if it's like too easy or if it felt like you should have done a little bit more? Do you ever feel the need to do that, or you just stick to the same schedule for that day?
No, I have a little, my approach tends to be on bench should be pretty strict. The way I've done it for bench is sometimes if I feel like I hit my top set good and I want more, then I might repeat the set for like 2 sets at the top weight. For something like squats, I might do the same thing, but I might also add a rep on the set if I felt like I got it. So I like to sometimes just do 1 set of kind of max reps. And not like max reps, quote unquote, it's a failure, but more like as many as I'm able to do. So I'm not trying to do reps that I'm going to fail on. But if I do a set of 5 and I know I can do another 1, then I might do that one. And that would just be something that would happen in the moment.
All right, cool.
But other times I'll do a second set if I kind of know I finished with 1 in the tank, because I feel like that extra set would help. Deadlifts, I don't usually do a second set. Not usually. Just more on squats or bench.
So I feel like this is a good one for anyone that trains. So this guy wants to know how important is it in powerlifting to do things like chiropractic and soft tissue work? Is that something that you incorporate?
I think everyone should figure out what works for them, because there's a lot of different things that can be helpful. You could kind of go through a list of anything that you could think of. Getting massages could feel good. Getting chiropractic work has been critical sometimes, and I felt like it's just kind of nice other times. But there's other things too. Like, you could just simply do like contrast shower, which is very good for getting blood flow to the body's like knots. Like if you have, some of the tendons get tight or things like that. That's one of the ones that really has helped me a lot, because I find that it actually works really effectively. You could get ART. That's sometimes done by, massage people or chiropractors. So like a couple of the chiropractors I've seen do more ART, and that's very helpful. It's like it's active release technique for, it's for muscle basically. Because, your body has its skeleton. If the skeleton's out of place, it's not going to work right. But if the skeleton's been out of place, then the muscles are not resting at their appropriate like length And so the length tension relationship is off. So your muscles are going to be either too stretched out or too tight. So then when you go to use them, they're not going to function well, and your body is still going to try to pull itself back out of position once you do see the chiropractor. So it's kind of like there's two levels. You've got to get the joints, or I'm sorry, the bones kind of set well, and then you have to have time for the muscles to kind of just kind of get back to being in their normal length because they're back to the normal position. So getting a little work on the muscles and chiropractic can be, great.
Rob, is that something that you incorporate too? Like, how often do you guys get work done? I guess it would depend on if you're in a meat prep or in off season.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it depends. Yeah. I would love to say that I'm like a professional athlete and I'd always put my own needs first, but it's not that way. So I know me and Rob both have kids. I have a fourth one coming in like a couple months.
Yeah, you got a full house now at the greenhouse.
Getting to like prioritize how I feel isn't always like, that's not always what I choose.
Yeah.
Today I'm actually seeing a chiropractor, and it'll be the first time in months. I didn't realize they were open during the quarantine, but I've been getting like a pinched nerve in my arm. So I'm seeing the guy who kind of worked on it once before, and it seemed to help a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah.
But when we have other things that worked at our gym, I would see him probably average once a week, sometimes twice, sometimes, not a certain week, but that was very helpful.
Yeah. All right. So I got a little bit of a funny question.
More than a couple times a year.
I got a good one for you. So your buddy Herbie the Love Bug wants to know, what's your favorite Mitch Hedberg joke? We might have lost the boss. Let's see. Yeah, I think we got him frozen or something.
I'm here.
Oh, you got me. Did you hear the question?
No.
Okay, so your buddy Herbie the Love Bug wrote in and wants to know, what is your favorite Mitch Hedberg joke?
Yeah, I think the one that's the quickest is, he has a lot, but he's like, I saw this wino and he was eating grapes, and I told him, I was like, dude, you have to wait. It's a lot of good ones, but that's a basic one.
I'm going to throw mine in it, and I might butcher this because it's been a long time since I heard it, but it's something along the lines where he's like, he goes to a donut shop and buys a donut, and the guy gives him a receipt, and he's like, what am I going to do with this? Go home and file it in my cabinet of receipts under D?
Yeah, he's like, when am I going to need to present proof that I purchased this donut?
Yeah. All right. So
the other one I liked is he's like, he's out to eat, and he's like, they call the person's name and they're not here, and then they just move on to the next person. And he's like, but who can eat at a time like this? People are missing. Good stuff.
All right, so I got one here. So this guy writes in that he's noticed on Instagram and with you posting your training that you've used heavy good mornings as a technique in your training a lot. He wants to know if he wrote in and he said he understands that everyone's body is different, but if you could provide any tips or cues for proper technique on a heavy good morning.
Yeah, I mean, as far as technique, the first thing I would say is, you need to use a weight that's going to be appropriate. So start light. It could be very light. It could be much lighter than you think. You could be a 400-pound squatter for reps and do like 95 pounds, and it'll probably be a fine weight to start at. And start off with sets of 10 just so you have more practice and you don't need as much weight. But the motion itself is, you want to move the hips back and you want to keep the hips high so you're not like squatting with it. And as you do, you're just, with a light enough weight, you'll kind of figure it out. I mean, if you don't brace your upper back, it'll put your head down and you'll realize that's not right. What I do when I have my clients learn it, this is something that at first I was like afraid to teach people because I'm like, this is a scary exercise for a lot of people. But I've taught all my clients that they've all done really well with it. Nobody's gotten hurt from doing it. What I usually do is I have them do it in a squat rack, so I can set the pins at like stomach height first, and then we can kind of move the pins down lower and lower as they get more competent. But what I basically teach for the way I do it is I kind of lower it as far as it feels good to lower it, and then I try to let it kind of settle just a little bit. So I come to a momentary pause. Well, the pause does two things. One, it allows your muscles to just relax a little bit, so you're getting a little bit of a passive stretch or passive loading on all the muscles in the hamstrings and erectors. That's good, because if you're too stiff, you don't get quite the same effect. Now, that's just my way of doing it. The second reason I like the pause is because I want to do a powerful, and the pause actually just kind of forces you to gather your balance before you do it. So you're not just reversing a weight and then the trajectory of the bar could be unexpected. I kind of use the analogy of being like a catapult, so you lower, let it settle into a pause, and then explosively accelerate the weight like you're going to throw it off your backwards. And that's pretty much it. And then I just try to, remember, you're not building your strength through good mornings in one workout. It's just something that you build up over time. So starting light, doing, 3x10 first or 4x10. And then, as you go heavier, the reps will change, of course, but always maintaining a focus on building volume with it, not just what's the heaviest you could do. That's not a smart approach.
Yeah, I've never even.
I would recommend first kind of using pins in the safety rack to kind of monitor how low you're going, both for safety and to kind of keep yourself honest.
Yeah, I've never even tried to go super heavy for good mornings. It's always like super light. It's more like just like a third accessory by then. So it's like just trying to do for technique purposes, get a little bit of strength in there. Speaking of like accessory lifts, currently right now, Dan, what would be your current accessory lifts now for your squat, bench, and deadlift now?
So right now for my squat rotation and deadlift rotation, I'm basically doing like a 2-week cycle every 2 weeks. It repeats. The first week I squat with the safety bar, and I usually go up to kind of one top set of reps. And then after that, I will do anywhere from like 4 to 7 sets of 5 with the good mornings. So the good mornings, I'll start, like 275 or 295 around there, and I'll build up somewhere around 400 or up. And then I'll kind of do a back down set or two, depending on how good it feels and how motivated I am at that point. So I'll get, some amount of volume at that point. And that's really the main thing. And I'll do some GHRs as like a third accessory, and I do abs most of the time when I train legs and back. But that's the main one for that day is good mornings. The end of that week on Friday, I deadlift and pretty much just do, variations of deadlift. So the stiff bar, the regular bar, I might use blocks, I might do some conventional. It's not really set right now. The second week I will do high bar squats, and I'm doing them in kind of a phase of doing them with like bare feet and no knee sleeves. It just forces me to kind of use my hips a little bit more, because without the squat shoes, my ankles can't kind of use the same amount of flexibility. So I stand a little wider, I sit back just a little bit further. So it gives me a nice little training effect there. And I'll do that for volume, anywhere between 2 to 4 sets, probably like sets of 5 right now. And then after that, I will do stiff leg deadlifts. So that's kind of the main accessory for week 2. Stiff leg deadlifts, I stand on a 3.5-inch box, and I do usually sets of 6 or sets of 8. And I typically go somewhere around like, 550 to 600 for the heaviest set, just depending on how tired I am after all the volume of squatting. I'm not really training for a meet at the moment, since there are no meets that I can really choose right now. So it just, the training varies a little bit. So the second week on Wednesday, I will do a front squat day. I've been doing that for I think I would be in like the 5th or 6th front squat session this coming week. And for front squats, I will tend to do somewhere around 2 to 3 sets, and I try to get about 5 to 8 reps. So I like to do that more for volume also. And even during a peaking phase, that would be what I would do for volume. I like the training effect on the quads and the upper back. That day, I don't really do a lot of accessories because the front squats they just wear me out. If I do something, it would be like light, like, I don't know, some like shrugs or something, or
Yeah, they look rough.
Usually it's not much. Usually it's not much. Front squats are exhausting. Yeah. Yeah, maybe abs or something, but it's not much. And then Friday I would deadlift again. My bench training has been at this point, I've had some elbow problems, and so what I've been doing mostly is I'll do about 2 or 3 weeks of really high volume. So I'll just do like 315, and I just do several sets of high reps. So it'll be even up to like 100 reps. The last workout was it was like sets of 15. I think I did 5 sets of 15 and then 13 and 12. So it wound up being 100 reps exactly. Just because I like how it gives me bottom end strength on the bench, just like a chest pump. It was kind of inspired by like when I talked to Julius Maddox, and he was just talking about doing hundreds and hundreds of push-ups to kind of build up his pecs. So I was just like, let me just use a lightweight on the bench and just really build up pec strength. And that day I'll do some like curls and skull crushers afterwards and some shoulder presses with dumbbells for high reps. And then another day of the week, like I said, with my elbow, I'll just do like 100 curls and 100 tricep extensions. So that's really all I'm doing for the bench. And then once every 3 or 4 weeks, I'll do kind of a normal, like heavier day where I'll do like a top set of 5 or something like that, and a couple things in there. But yeah, I'm not doing a lot of accessories on my bench other than like some shoulder presses, and it's a lot of like curls and tricep stuff.
So with all the volume that you do all together, would you say rest periods like stay the same, or do you make any adjustments to them? Like, do you rest longer for like doing like a lot more volume that you get more tired here with, or usually keep the rest time the same all the way across the board, even if you're off season or meet prep?
Well, okay. So what I like to do is I like to make sure my warm ups are quick. I like to get through this first. I'll do like some jumping jacks and leg swings and some squats and stuff like to warm up. And I like to get through that quick, and I like to get through my first several like 3 or 4 sets of squats or deadlifts quickly, both for the sake of time and it keeps my energy levels good. In the beginning, that sounds horrible, but once you do it, then it feels like a warm up, not like you just, exhausted yourself. And then I take my time on the main sets on squat days and deadlift days. So I could be resting like 10 to 15 minutes. When I do accessories, it's usually a little faster than that, like maybe 3 to 5 minutes on the good mornings, or maybe 5 to 10 minutes on the stiff leg deadlifts. My bench day, I time it. So I put a 4-minute timer between sets on the high rep days. If I got to get through like 6 or 7 sets or 8 sets or 9 sets, I don't want to sit there for more than like 4 to 5 minutes. So I actually do use a timer on that day.
Makes perfect sense. Yeah, it's the same. When I do my warm-ups for like squat, bench, and deadlift, I'm always like either jumping 90 pounds, and they're really quick. So slap on 135, do the set, go find the other plates, slap the 225, I'll do that set, do 315, do 4 or 5. And like when I get to like 500, I'm like, okay, now I can kind of break a little bit and then figure out what I want to do for top set, how I'm going to get there. So,
yeah.
Dan, I got a good one for you. So this is somebody wrote in and they said, so as a competitive powerlifter, what was your greatest barrier that you had to overcome, and then how did you overcome it? So I guess I don't know if he meant this, specifically mentally, or if it was something physical, but anything that you could shed some light on from this guy.
Well, yeah, for sure. Okay, so some of my thoughts as far as like mentally, I think I had the right attitude from the very beginning, where people always say you need to train around people who are stronger than you. Now, I've always been usually the strongest guy at my gym. So I always went to competitions where I could find better hitters than myself. Right from the very beginning, I was like, let me set my sights on some goals for totals, and let me set my, let me go to the federations where I see people who are better than me And I've always sought out, high competition. And I felt like every time I did that, it was worth it way more than you could ever imagine, because when I would go to meets, and anyone who's been a powerlifter knows that people are very willing to just tell you anything you want to know when you go to meets and you meet these lifters. They're very friendly and there's great camaraderie. So when I would go to these meets, I would learn a lot. I would always learn a lot. And that's what I would take back home. And even being the strongest guy at my gym, I had ways of then getting better. I had enough intensity and drive to push myself without needing, somebody to kind of look up to at the gym, because I would get my goals from, the real competitions. So mentally, I always had that. And even when I would see people that were way better than me, I would, I could tell myself, look, that's another person made out of flesh and blood like myself. There's no reason I couldn't do things that he does that I could learn. Just because he's more advanced than me right now doesn't mean that. The only exception was I'm Jeremy Hornstra. I feel like a little bit too much of a freak to really emulate. So everyone else, I'm like, okay, there's a hidden secret to what they're doing, and let's be honest, most of the time it's superior technique, and that's the painful truth for a lot of people, but it's the secret. So that brings me to my next thing, which is, as a full meet powerlifter, where I've set a lot of records with totals, you have to be good at all three. I mean, some people can be so good at one that it carries them through the other ones, but they're not at the top because they didn't work on their other ones also. And I've always been more well-rounded. I don't have weird proportions. I have normal. I'm average height, average wingspan, pretty much. I don't have average hand size. I don't know. So I don't have any. I don't have any ways of being just really great at any one lift unless I learn and master it. So for every lift, I had at least an 18-month phase where I was just totally stalled out and I didn't make any progress. And each one, it wasn't you just got to psych yourself up or anything weird like that. It was just being so obsessed with wanting to get better that eventually you stumble upon something that starts to make an impact. And then you make a breakthrough. It's not like when somebody asks you hey, you're really strong, how long have you been training? As though there's an implication that, as time goes by, you get better and it's just a 1-to-1 ratio. Because the reality is you break through and then you're stuck, you make a breakthrough, your strength goes up, and then you're stuck again. And so for all those lifts, being stuck at just over 400 on bench, being stuck at just over 600 on squats, and stuck at 660 on deadlifts, for each one of those, it was 18 months where I was not making any progress. Not all at the same time, but for each one of those, I wound up learning things that allowed me to alter my training, alter my technique, and make a breakthrough. And that, I have to say, that's something I'm very proud of, but it's also something that's, that's what people love lifting, because to be really great at it, people really respect you because they know it's not easy. They want it to be easy, but it's not. And so to be really strong, it took a lot of work and a lot of dedication. And as a personal trainer, I'd love to say, hey, you just pay me, and then you're going to always get stronger. It's not even that simple, I mean, it's great when you can have somebody that's there that can help you get past some of the pitfalls, so you're not just spinning your wheels for a long time. Because the other side of that is you don't make the breakthrough, or you get hurt, and then you eventually wind up just quitting. So I think learning how to get better in training and technique and stuff is huge, and it's probably the answer for everything. But it's not a simple, there's no silver bullet there. Everyone's going to lift with different form, and to learn it better is going to take a lot of mastery. You got to be your own expert on yourself at some point.
So I have one. This is a good one that I happened to get, and it's relevant to both of you guys because you both had the big knee injuries. So this guy wanted to know, what was the most difficult part of overcoming your injury, and how did you stay motivated through your recovery?
I don't know. I think I was pretty determined from the beginning to make a good recovery. And so, it took a little patience because after the injury, the knee tendon was very stiff for a long time. But I think, I trust my intuition a lot. And so I was able to alter my training, doing fewer squat days, using a different technique on my squats, focusing on conventional deadlifts instead of sumo. So I was able to train as hard as I wanted to. I just couldn't train as hard as I wanted to on squats. But I was totally content to avoid overdoing it on squatting and just be able to really just focus on deadlifts, and that was totally fine. My squats got just as strong just using a different technique, kind of leaning over more and using more my back, and that was fine. I thought honestly, like the hardest part when I first had the surgery was like just trying to get in the shower the first day.
Oh my God, yes.
The most like frightening thing was trying to get over the little like bathtub lip, which is it's like, I don't know, 15 inches tall or something, and not trusting that if I put my weight on my leg, like what's going to happen? Is it going to like snap or something? Yeah, that was just frightening. And then even the second time, I decided I would take a shower in a downstairs one, which had like a 4-inch lip, like a curb, and even that I was like, man. that was the most frightening thing. The training was the easy part, and not easy is, but I'm used to being in discomfort, so that was fine. And I've rehabbed other things before in my past, so yeah. And then I guess one thing that's very unique with the knee is like you get so much swelling in there that when you do start the rehab where you're trying to like regain the flexion, man, just like letting your knee flex with all that like fluid that's in there, it's like the moment you try to start bending your knee, your whole body, just like the blood pressure just goes through the roof. It's crazy. I can't really describe it in like, I don't know why that was like that, but I don't know. It was crazy.
Rob, what about for you?
Man, that was my first major injury. Man, it was like disheartening for like a couple days, just because like I had to go to the hospital, so I didn't know what was going to happen. And they gave me news, oh yeah, it's snapped, you're going to need surgery. So I let myself feel sorry for myself for about like 2 days, right? So I could just kind of like take it all in, just absorb it. And I was like, okay, goal's still the same. Doc said whenever I get the surgery, it's going to be basically like 100% brand new. I'll be good to go. So it really just pissed me off that I was about 3 or 4 weeks out from doing Boss of Bosses. I was ready to put up this big total. I just already came off injury. I was super excited. And once it shot me down, I was just so pissed off that I needed to get back to where I was supposed to be at. So that was my motivation to like continue and keep going, because I was already going to be able to I knew I was going to go to my goal about trying to be the strongest, but I was more pissed off that I couldn't walk. So I was able to walk a little faster than normal. I was able to squat ahead of schedule. And I just started working on technique. I stayed on my recovery day in, day out, just to make sure I would be ahead of schedule and I would be able to make time enough to be able to get ready for the next Boss of Bosses. So I set little micro goals up, and it helps me accomplish every time I hit one. That motivation would pick me up for another one, and I would just keep hitting those micro goals until I got to that big macro goal at the end. It sucked, especially the shower deal. Man, it was terrible. I kept trying to figure out like how I would do that and stuff. Like I would make sure like I do the pivot, like ballerina dance in the circle to get it to like swing up the bathtub lip. Yeah, that was the worst. I remember it's like maybe if I just like take a bath and like soak my leg, it might feel better. It was the dumbest idea ever, because then I got stuck in the bathtub and I couldn't get out of that damn thing. So that was probably the worst. That was probably the worst of it, was getting stuck in the bathtub and trying to figure out how to get back out of it. That was the worst part for me, that part.
Yeah, and then who's helping to pull you up out of a bathtub?
Oh my God, it was terrible, man. It was terrible.
Jeez.
Yeah, the other one that was funny for me was like, I think I went back to work about 3 or 4 days after the surgery, and I would just sit in our back. We got this like sofa, and I would have my little ice chest that circulates the cold water there. But every day when I drive to work, my right leg was in a brace, and so I had to like put my right leg on the passenger chair on my truck and drive with my left foot. Just kind of like
whoa,
kind of weird. It's not easy.
Oh, no, that's
but
terrible.
Made it work though. All right, so we don't want to keep you too much longer. I have 2 here. One guy asked 2 questions, and they kind of go hand in hand. I mean, it's going to be tough to answer, but he first wants to know if, minus the virus, do you have plans to compete again moving forward? And then secondly, he wants to know if Boss of Bosses is going to happen this year. For
me, I intend to compete again. I don't know what competition it will be.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit too soon to even know what competitions will be out there. I know I've heard of some people doing some. I have no idea if they're going to be able to have them or not, or, whatever. But right now, I mean, I would have loved to have done a competition during this time when there was the virus, or have, Boss of Bosses, but obviously it's canceled this year. I'm waiting on my fourth and final baby. So it's most likely that, in next year is when I'll be doing it. And as far as Boss of Bosses next year, we definitely intend to have it. So it'll be kind of right at the end of August, like we always have it. Just had to take a break this year, unfortunately.
You got to be careful. Don't jinx yourself now, because when you say fourth and final, that's a full house that you got already. So. But all right, Dan. Rob, you have any more questions for Dan before we let him go?
No, I don't have any more questions.
No?
Yeah,
Okay.
we're good.
All right, Dan. Well, I appreciate you making time for us. I know that you're 3 hours ahead of us, so this was a little early for you, but
Well, good.
I appreciate it. To you animal fans out there, until next time, take care. Thanks.